Perfect. Got it. So now just have to add. This isn't going to do it. So
It's maybe for audio to call the speaker.
okay. We are having some technical difficulty here with my camera.
Yeah, the room is small. Maybe you can just use your computer speakers.
Yeah. I think a bunch of people are messaging me right now. Let me get that. Check your calendar. Okay. So I'm broadcasting. I am not receiving anyone. Something's blocking it. So we'll just go to Gmail and we'll go find everybody. And we'll re-invite them.
I'm not good to pick it up.
Okay. So I'm just going to simply invite everyone.
Well, I was going to try to use my computer. Is it on the calendar?
Yeah, but the audio isn't going to. And why is it just added all these names and it's not working? Should be on your calendar. Why don't you?
Yeah, I have two events. I don't know which one has the hangout.
Click the one. Click the one on the right.
The one on the right.
Yeah, they should be side by side.
I don't know what you're talking
Not
about.
this one. The other one.
Right.
That one. Okay.
It doesn't have a video call. And there's the option to add a video call.
Here. I will email this to you.
Hello.
This one has everyone's names.
Okay, you should have it in your email right now. The link to it. So. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, only one of us
It's here.
should have their speaker on.
Yeah, let me. Got mine. So,
You can still hear your keystrokes.
sorry. Oh, that wasn't a good idea. We can fix that.
It's fine, but you can really only have one computer in the room.
Well, turn it on. I'll turn off my my microphone.
And your speaker.
My speakers.
You need to mute the microphone as well as the speaker, okay?
Yeah, I do. Having a couple of problems right here.
Never mind. You ready?
Hang on.
Let me know when you're muted.
You can use that. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I did.
All right. There we go. We're looking at you.
Everyone. Let's look at use. Okay, so that people's.
Oh, I just did that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody is invited.
Good. How's it going? Good. So, do we have our special guest star?
He should be there, but hang on. Sorry about this, folks.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they can hear you very well.
But okay, those were all shut down, so we're good. Okay. Everybody should have it. I don't know that that makes any sense to do it there, but who else is here?
Yeah, Mark, you might not want to take a spot when we get started. Yeah, no, make sure that we are working.
Yeah.
But when we get
Okay.
started, you can, well, okay. You did verify that we are on, so that's good. All right, this has to be quiet. That's all the noise.
That should be.
So there's Jacob.
Okay.
Let me just text. Okay. Who else have we got here? So I'm going to come around and hang out with you, Beth, because your microphone's on.
Yep.
And we'll just get started as soon as Damon gets here. Let's take control here. Much better. Who else is here?
Everybody, what? Peoples. Okay, so all that hangout noise was just you. That's fine.
Okay. Let me do one other thing, and I'm just going to get going as soon as he gets here.
Yeah, but now I can't write code while I'm listening. I suppose I couldn't really do that
You
anyway.
could. But
You can't code on your phone.
No, it runs on my phone.
doesn't.
I can create some new tests. There's an app called Barista.
Yeah.
Yeah, it uses the accessibility feature overlays. It's funny.
Hi there.
Hi.
When you switch over to Damon.
Okay.
We've got some small problems with Hangouts on Air, but I've left links everywhere, so we might as well just get started. Just make sure all my sound is off. There we are. Good. Hey there, Damon.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Thanks for getting together with us.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to have to work through one microphone over here, so questions we can either do through Hangouts if people in the room log in, or we can come up to the speaker over here. The AV over here at the Media Lab isn't quite as up to date as I had anticipated. But
We didn't get the manual. Just use their information, I think.
So we gave it a good 20 minutes or so to make it work. What I was hoping is that we could convey some of Damon's experience running hackathons, specifically in the VR space, to our group, and then give you a chance to ask some questions. Damon's run about 22 hackathons as of last count, or something like that.
I'm around in there, yeah. Past 2 years, yeah.
And is that as long as sound goes?
No.
And then he's also been supporting quite a few hackathons around the world under VRHackathon.com. So I had a chance to spend a few minutes with him in California, which was really, really insightful, and I thought everybody should gain the value of it. Neil's here too. Nice. Good. So maybe you could just start off and talk about some of the more memorable hackathons that you've worked on.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, my name is Damon Hernandez. My background is in Web3D and interactive 3D. Been doing that for about 15 years. Very focused around the standards for Web3D data. And so that puts me in a lot of industries where standards matter. So pretty much every industry other than entertainment, gaming, or porn. And so really focused on, just, again, interactive 3D, not too much VR, AR, browser-based. I'm kind of agnostic as how you view and interact with the data. And yeah, I got involved doing hackathons back at the end of 2013, hosting them. Before that, I definitely attended them, participant and things like that. Found a lot of value out of them for years, just as a front-end web developer with a focus on interactive 3D. And then when I started throwing them, I mainly started having them for the architecture, engineering, and construction space. So that's AEC hackathon.com. And so this was a chance to kind of bring together technologists with people from the various parts of the built environment. And so some of the memorable hacks that I've seen that have come out of that is everything from using 3D modeling software to control drones. So if you have a building, you can plot where the drones fly as well. A company called Mortensen Construction. It's a little boring, but they have a line item of lost tools for $50,000 per project, and they do a couple hundred projects a year. So they made an app where they put RFID stickers on tools and then put an RFID reader inside of a tool box. And so every time a tool came in or out, the box would take inventory of itself, and enough of these boxes on the job site could help triangulate tools. At that one, we also had a group that used virtual reality for training people about on-site job safety. And so doing them for the built environment got me involved in 2014. In October, we had our first virtual reality and immersive technologies hackathon here in San Francisco. Again, even though it's called VR Hackathon, we do promote augmented reality and other tech as well. And the two here in San Francisco went up to Seattle. The day job, I'm based out of there. And so we were up there and we decided to have a hackathon up there for the virtual reality community. And then that turned into a group from Brussels, said, hey, we want to do one over here in Europe, so we helped them organize it. And so that, so our little VR hackathon that started off here in Silicon Valley is actually blown up into ones in 3 different continents right now in several different countries. All kinds of really cool hacks. I can't say exactly what's my favorite. One of the ones that kind of stood out, a group did Piano Hero. So they had a keyboard and they used the Oculus Rift, and so much like Guitar Hero where you see the notes you're supposed to play, same kind of thing. The notes came down and you had to play on the keyboard where you were supposed to, and they built it where you could feed in any MIDI file. So like a full-fledged kind of working prototype there in a weekend. So that was pretty cool. Some of the other ones that I saw were really neat is where people didn't just make an app for like the Oculus, right? They made a cool game or experience where one person could be in a cardboard or in a head-mounted display, and another person could be interacting with them on just an iPad. So that was really cool to see, different devices that are being used and things like that. And then, of course, there was one team in Brussels that did a really amazing thing. They had, let me see if I can share. I believe I have a picture of it here. I was trying to pull up some slides to share with folks. So let me see if I can share my screen real quick. And, I believe it's this one. So you guys might be looking at yourself for a moment. And I take it everyone can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, let me see exactly where. Okay, so this was kind of a really cool project. So here, this team took these Nerf guns. They modified these Nerf guns with pistons and others to actually provide force feedback. The jackets that they were wearing also provided feedback. So the idea here is you have a guy that's sitting in a cockpit. He's flying a spaceship. You have two gunners, and then the gunners shoot like asteroids, or one of the characters in there that you had to destroy was the it's a meme, but it's the cat that has like the rainbow behind it. I forgot the name of it, but anyways. So this one was really neat because they really threw in like everything in the kitchen sink. So you had these two guns that provided force feedback. They hooked it up to these vests that provided force feedback. You had a person here in the cockpit that was flying the plane. Over here, if you can see, they actually had fans, so they blow air on you. And then if you wanted to play with these folks, if you wanted to put things in the scene that would attack the spaceship, they had an augmented reality app where you could AR over different markers that were like an asteroid or an alien spaceship or things like that that would attack these three people that were playing. Or if you wanted to help them, you could do a cardboard web VR mini game that unlocked power-ups that they had to shoot when they were in the scene. So that was probably one of the most complex hacks I ever saw an entire weekend. But it was really cool. It was really cool. So that's some of the more memorable ones that I've seen from some of the events.
Get confused there for a minute when I saw ourselves here at the end of it, flipped it here. You had some comments about balancing different types of applications that I thought was really valuable between games and other types of applications.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, where to start? You know, there's gaming is, you know, this year I think or something like that. It's going to be $100 billion industry globally, right? Just in the U.S., construction alone is a $1 trillion market. So, so one of the things that we started, the group of us at the VR Hackathon, is we said, hey, why don't we help, you know, real-world industries start to have more proof of concepts and development and just more exposure, right? I think a lot of the problem is with virtual reality is that a lot of people get too focused on gaming and they forget about all the rest of reality. And then also the technology really becomes a push instead of a pull, right? It's a bunch of developers and people that know Unity or Unreal that are developing experiences and trying to push them in these other industries instead of grabbing people from those industries to see how these technologies can be a better tool and then building something and pulling it in. So, so yeah, so the focus this year is we said, hey, to help people who are coming from these real-world verticals that want to say, you know, how can we embrace augmented reality, virtual reality, that type of thing, we decided to create industry vertical tracks. And so at each event around the world, depending upon what are the prominent industries in that area, we have themed tracks. So here in San Francisco, because I was one of the organizers, and I work a lot, like I said, in the building industry, and one of my fellow co-organizers is an actual physician that's been in VR for about 15 years. We had a medical and an architecture, engineering, and construction track. In South Africa, mining is very big, so they're going to have a mining track. And you know, Seattle, aerospace, biomed, in Milan, it's going to be fashion, automotive. So the idea here being is that we invite people from industry that maybe have heard of VR, but you know aren't quite at that developer stage, and maybe more sit as enthusiasts, to come and then work with the teams, right? And really then say, hey, this is a problem that we have where we see that this technology can help, and really try to build something that's more than just a fun, you know, wow experience for a weekend that really doesn't go anywhere after the Sunday.
Yeah, what would you say are you know, I'm sure we'll come up with some new verticals, and we should really think about, you know, what are verticals that we should reach out to. But what are the verticals that you would say we shouldn't miss?
Well, you know, I think the thing is it's really tough, right? I mean, the cool thing about virtual reality and these technologies is all of reality. I think the markets that a lot of people go after right away that I don't quite understand is education and architecture. And the reason why I say I don't understand those is not it's more on the fact of cost, right, and paying for it. You know, it's like when I hear people talk about they're going to build VR for education, and then you ask them the question of who's going to pay for it, right? So I think in one way I've seen that if you can show how a technology, regardless of what it is going to solve a problem on my Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and it really solves my problem, I want to use that on Monday. You're making my job easier. And so what I would hope is that the industries that, you know, we look to include this year, just in all the VR hackathons, are really industries where you're hitting a pain point, so that way they start to say, okay, well let's really focus and bring this in, and then help, again, the technologies proliferate more into these other verticals. So of course, look at where it has been, heavy industry. You know, automotive, that type of thing. You know, military, of course, those have been there. Something I'm starting to see more of is on the neuroscience side, and VR for wellness. And I'm seeing like a real sudden boom of people who are trying to create virtual reality experiences that you know, provide people to go into Zen states or, you know, calming meadows or that type of thing. So I think there's a lot of areas to explore. And it would actually be really neat if I started to see people looking at industries that aren't the usual suspects: real estate, architecture, medical, and education.
I see. Okay, cool. Maybe you could talk a little bit about themes that you've used, that you've seen applied to the various hackathons.
Well, you know, we just started with the themed tracks, at least with the VR hackathons. You know, the AEC one, that whole hackathon is just focused on you know, the built environment professions. So that one is encompassing of architecture, engineering, manufacturing, construction, and then facilities management, smart cities, right? And so and those, when you put that kind of focus. And you know, the idea behind that one is come for the weekend, have fun, build your proof of concept, but again, solve a problem. It takes a different, it creates a different dynamic, you know, than I think that I see at some of the other hackathons. And then the thing that I run into a lot from people as far as the feedback goes is, you know, how do we keep what we built going? So as far as themes are concerned, again, there's people that are very interested in, like I said, the usual suspects. I do hope that education is one of those where we have a vertical that is about education. But what I really hope for some of these themed ones is that we really get a lot of people from industry, you know, to participate. Because sometimes that is a problem, you know, my fellow geeks and I, we get too excited about building the widget for something, and we have no idea about that industry or how impactful this is going to be, right? So when it comes to themes, again, we just started. So but so far it went pretty good. We had a good turnout for people that were doing the medical applications. Still not quite what we were going for. You know, it wasn't people really using, like, say, medical data or something like that, or, you know, doctors. But so far, it's going well. Fingers crossed.
Okay. So the next thing comes to mind before a broad question, a very specific question, which is is from being at the Game Developers Conference, what's really clear is the developers are just a small part of the creative process. A very important part, but not, they're probably a third of it. You need domain expertise, and you also need design expertise. How have you drawn that domain expertise into the hackathons?
That's a great question, and it's been difficult, right? Because what you have now is you need people who are familiar with 3D interfaces, menus, that type of thing, and that usually is the game developers. Now, this may get me shot in certain circles, but I think it takes a lot more to be a VR developer than just a person who knows how to use Unity or Unreal and switch out the main camera for an Oculus prefab and push build, right? There's a lot of design methodologies and things that need to be done to make sure that you don't induce motion sickness, nausea, certain frame rates per second. And so just on the building of an experience side, there's a lot of lessons there that need to be shared, because VR is nothing new. There have been people who've been doing it for decades. But a lot of the bulk of the development now is being done what I like to call the DK1 generation, people who got involved with virtual reality after the Oculus development kit. And so there's still a little bit of those people learning stuff. So just on the engineering side, there's more collaboration and sharing of best practices. Now, on the design side, it is very challenging because, again, the people who are used to building those experiences are game developers. And so that's when you bring them out of games and have them look at other interfaces, not saying that they don't do it, but it just may not be what they're interested in. So that's one thing I'm finding. The other thing is designers. Like even earlier today, I had a designer came over. She did tilt brush. She tried that, and because she's trying to better understand how do you do UI and UX, because she's a front-end web designer, and now with WebVR, as a front-end web designer or developers, now we have to look at how do you build something that's going to format and look good on mobile, tablet, desktop, or if someone comes to it in the experimental builds of the browser, how do you put that website in VR? How do you make that UX and that UI consistent over all those different devices? And then how do you bring something that's normally in the HUD of the window that you're clicking on, buttons and things like that, into the scene? So there's a whole lot of new area that's to be explored where, sometimes when I talk to designers, they're like, well, I'd love to come, but I don't understand enough, or I don't know that much. And it's like, hey, don't worry. Not many people do, right? So that's why I think ideally what we'd love to do is maybe have a workshop beforehand that we video that has a person who has done UI UX for VR and AR to come in and kind of chat about it, because it's been difficult to get those folks to participate more. And then also a lot of them just aren't aware of it, right? That's the other thing, is that even though as popular as VR sounds and stuff like that, there is still a decent amount of people, even on the technology development side, designers and developers, that have never done anything more than just a cardboard. So it's challenging. It's challenging.
So I'm going to take a break here and take a poll. We've got about 8 other people in this room that are all listening in and on you. Anybody have any questions so far?
I got one.
Yeah.
Hey, Damon, this is Arpit. I was wondering if you have any sort of thoughts on getting people to register. So you mentioned VR is still new, not a lot of developers are new. You also want industry folks to come in. Has anything in particular worked for you to get all these people to sign up and show up for the event?
Okay, so how do you get people to sign up for an event, you're asking?
Yeah, hackathons.
Yeah, well, it all depends on the local community, right? I mean, here in San Francisco, we have a pretty decent size community, so it's not too hard to rally the troops. And I think that with all the exposure that you're starting to see around these technologies and the newspapers and TechCrunch and things like that, there's a lot of people that are excited. Now I think the problem that when we go into some of these other places that I'm always trying to be cognizant of is that sometimes you'll hit a lot more enthusiasts than you do developers, right? And so if you have more people that come with ideas than you do people who can build them to a hackathon, you don't have a hackathon, you have an unconference with a bunch of bored developers. And so it's definitely a lot of outreach, right? I mean, look at most of the development tools, like I said, for VR right now are Unity and Unreal. Now, there are pretty big Unity and Unreal meetup groups in a lot of the cities that I've seen. So I definitely would say start there, right? That's a great place to start. When it comes to the industry side of things, pick those industry verticals that you want to go into, and then if it's not a LinkedIn query or a Google query to see who doing this is interested in this, or maybe a meetup group. So I've often found that it's really good to prime the pump of interest, engage interest with meetup groups or something ahead of time to kind of gauge interest from folks. What kind of people are we going to have attend? And then also to share with the would-be enthusiasts that want to turn into developers or developers the tools that they can use for the weekend. One of the mistakes that I've made in the past is we didn't expose people to the technology until they showed up on Friday. And it's a much better idea to share it with them earlier. And so if they feel more comfortable with it, that's a great way to get them. The meetups is another great way to get them. Being able to say that in your prizes, you have X amount of dollars of prizes, and of course that doesn't have to be cash; it can just be prizes. But nothing motivates people like a little bit of recognition and the chance to win something. So it is some legwork. I'm not going to lie; it's a lot of legwork. But once you've had one, then it's over. The word spreads itself.
A couple things come to mind, and before I ask that broader question, we've got Jeff Bale here, who is from the Boston Virtual Reality Group, which is a really active group. Jeff, could you jump in and talk a little bit about how you've drawn together teams of different domain experience? I'm not hearing you, Jeff.
Damon, did you say you had slides?
Well, I didn't necessarily have. I more had tabs, website tabs to share. But
I think Jeff is.
Yeah. Did you want to do that, and we'll go back to Jeff?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they were just showing they were just showing the VR Hackathon website, talking a little bit about the group that's currently one of our fiscal sponsors for that and organizers, and then just ways that I've used virtual reality. So I'm sure people here would rather hear about how to plan a good hackathon than listening to me.
Hi, this is Jonathan. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is sort of related to what you were just talking about, but you had talked about themes and industry applications. Would you expect that people would come to the hackathon with an application idea? Where we get people to come to the hackathon first, and then they form the application idea. I mean, the point is, is the theme driving the participants, or is the participants driving the theme when we promote it? Great
question. I personally keep it a little bit open to both, right? Normally we have 4 categories that are pretty standard: best web, best mobile, best looking, and best overall. Then we try to introduce 1 to 2 industry verticals. And then if sponsors come on board, depending upon their sponsor tier, they're also allowed to propose challenges. So like Samsung came and they said the best gear VR won. So there are those that we kind of say, hey, here's a broad category and ideas that if you develop an idea around, you can kind of go for one of these categories that way. I try personally not to put too much restrictions around what people build, just because I think part of the fun of the weekend is coming up with the creative process, right, of brainstorming. And so we do have some folks who come and they say, this is exactly the idea that I want to make, this is what I want to pitch. And they get up there and they pitch it. We have some people who come with entire teams where they already have the idea in their head of what they're going to build and the people to do it, and they really just need the weekend to be left alone and do it. And then we have folks who come and, during the social mixer on Friday night, they kind of just chat with other people, and then everybody comes up with an idea then. So it's pretty open in that. And then it seems, at least from what people do, it almost seems more that folks form an idea or come with an idea and then see in what category it goes into. And
what were those first 4? Best web, best mobile, what was that?
Best overall, and then best looking. And then the best looking is mainly for the artist. So if someone has...
so those are not applications at all, and so... and then when we first convened, it was proposed that we do VR and AR and mixed reality, and so it's sort of like all these different permutations and combinations can get a little out of hand.
It can, and so that's where on the so we had those 4 at the one here in San Francisco just the week before GDC. Now the 2 real-world industry verticals were the best immersive tech project for healthcare, and then the best immersive tech project for AEC. And those were judged a little different, right? Those were judged to really be, an application that would solve an industry problem. It was open to any kind of viewing mechanism. And then there were people who came specifically for that. So for the architecture, engineering, construction one, we had the 3 teams that entered that were led by, one is an actual builder. They do steel wall framing down from Southern California. He came up to pitch an idea. Another one was an actual architect who they created a design tool, Team Deco. They actually won. And then the third one is a guy who makes software for the architecture space, parametric design and things like that, that was implementing in Leap Motion. So I have seen, at least with this past one, that for those industry verticals, we got people from that industry to come, and again, they already kind of knew what they were going to work on.
Okay. You had a question?
Yeah, it's similar to the last one, but I'll expand on that.
Here, you should come around, because otherwise, let them know who you are.
Hey, Damon. I'm Nigel. I work for Qualcomm. I work on the Gear VR. I had a question about, in terms of establishing the technical rules and regulation of a hackathon, and like, you don't want people to come in and just have a pre-made app and win the contest. At the same time, you don't want to restrict them too much, and like, because they're using Unity or Unreal is in essence using a prepackaged application already to build something, and you might have your own libraries and stuff like that. So I was just curious about how you've established your technical rules in the past for your past hackathons, and what has worked and what hasn't worked.
Right, great question. So yeah, that is something that we are always trying to be aware of. I mean, I know of people who in San Francisco just pay their bills because they'll take something that they built to a hackathon and enter it, right? Yeah. And so what we do there is we definitely have them state, what engine did you do this in? When did you start working on it? And then also, if you know, if your judges are technical, you can look and see what someone's built in a weekend, right? You know what I mean? So if someone's coming in with something that's insanely polished and things like that, you know what they started on a Friday night, Saturday morning, and a little bit beforehand, even if they're not on the honor system. So right now, that is very much, and that is one of the questions. Now, you know, as you guys move forward, there's a whole slew of little forms and documents that I can share with you that are just resources that we've put together. Or that's one of the things that, you know, the judges know to ask, and that's one of the judging criteria, is that you have to state how much of this was built in the weekend, what libraries did you use, what game engines did you use, and things like that. Because, yeah, you know, if someone came and they cobbled bits and pieces of this API with this game engine and stuff like that, that falls into a different, you know, category than the people who came and just built everything from the ground up. And so it's more of like bonus points. So, you know, if you didn't use a game engine, you get bonus points. If you used open standards, bonus points. If you open sourced your project, bonus points, right? So it's kind of, again, it's a combination of the honor system and then just people being able to look and see exactly, you know, what it takes to build something.
Absolutely. That was great.
Yeah, that sounds like we need to take a little bit of time and look at what we're going to give people in terms of the rules too.
Yeah, I'm happy to share, like I said, the guidelines and things. Yes?
The logistics for judging, the time for each presentation.
Okay, well that's a good point, because I want to bring something in here, which is we have an opportunity, I think, to start on Friday evening with the mixer and the project pitches. Build on Saturday and Sunday, and then at the end of Sunday start to judge, but we've got all of Monday because Monday's a holiday. So we could actually do a fairly thorough job letting the judges get involved. This came up in the last conversation last time we met, and the two things is allowing the judges the leisure time to actually spend enough time with the group to really do a good job judging, and the other is that a lot of people who compete in hackathons said at the last meeting was they would go to a hackathon, build something, the judges would judge, and then the winners would get picked, and then everybody would leave without looking at one another's projects, which, you know, they all thought was a lot of fun. So, I mean, where would your guidance be, given the amount of time we've got, the less constrained time than we have as compared to other the typical hackathon?
Right. I think the logistics are the logistics, regardless of the amount of time. That's just another logistic. So I was interested in how you manage presenting across different platforms and timing.
Yeah, so that's been tricky. Now, you know, to let this cat out of the bag, you know, we tell people to finish, and hacking concludes at 1 o'clock. All right. Now, anyone that's ever worked with software knows that stuff always works by the time that your deadline is set. So that becomes floating, right? About 10 till, I'll walk in there and be like, who needs 30 more minutes or another hour? And then you just look, you see the state of execution, and then hands go up. So the judging, normally we don't start until about 2 o'clock. Now, since it's VR, and that makes it insanely difficult, we actually take the judges to the different stations. So every team gets a little sticky note that's like number 1, number 2, something like that. And then the judges visit the individual setups, because some teams will have their VR experience starting from where you're standing in the real space. So like at one of them, these guys made a Ghostbusters game that was the venue. They modeled the venue, they modeled where they were, so when you put this on, you were standing in the same spot, you were standing in the digital recreation, and you shot. So so for, you know, just running it, there is no people go up to a projector and plug it in and do their PowerPoint presentation. It's not a startup weekend. So we have been doing, the judges go to the tables. Each judge gets about 3 minutes, no longer, in the experience. Because that's the other thing, right? They are judging on what are the frame rates, how does it look, all this other stuff. So the judges get a chance to go into the world and check it out. What we just started doing, which was a major win, is we did ask the teams, though, please make a video, small little video, that shows your presentation. And so at the Microsoft Reactor space, it was really great because they had screens everywhere. And so as the judges were at a particular team's table, we give the team leader the microphone, and as he's talking, we then had someone who just played the videos on the screen for everybody else. And so that's the way that we kind of went through it. And so, you know, you knock that out that way. And then what we do now is we have a little VR expo at, you know, after the judging for the teams because of that very problem. Everybody said, hey, I don't know what Joe worked on over there, or those guys over there, I'd love to see that. So that's where we said, all right, you know, why don't we, instead of going and judging, coming back and announcing the winners, and then everybody, you know, packed up their stuff even though we had an hour and a half left to share with things, everybody was just ready to get out of there. We said, let's announce the winners 20 minutes till we end it, and give that time in between as a little VR expo for the teams to go visit other things. And then also that we've seen where this is where, you know, they'll invite their wives or, you know, husbands, kids, that kind of thing to come. It's also a place where we've invited press and things like that to come and make it open to the interested public as well. So so that's kind of how we handle the judging times now is, you know, we give them a little bit more time than the scheduled deadline. Everybody, you know, the judges visit each station. We try to say you have about 8 to 10 minutes to give your presentation. Run videos as they go to each station for everyone else that wants to participate and pay attention, and then yeah, just have a little expo, announce the winners, and everybody goes home.
Awesome. A couple other questions from my point is what's in it from the financial sponsors, the one that writes checks, and what's in it for the in-kind sponsors that either deliver technical support or deliver you know, Oculus headsets as prizes?
Right. You know, that's a great question. I think the thing is that it's people working with their stuff, right? I mean, number one, that's the beauty of a hackathon. It's different than an event. Now, you know, to be upfront, one of the issues that I have had with just getting financial resources as a sponsorship is the numbers, right? We try to have our hackathons at no more ever than 200 people, because anything bigger than that becomes a logistical nightmare, one. Two, anything bigger than that, people, it's a different vibe, right? You feel like you're just one of the cattle and it's not this intimate little small group. Most of the hackathons we have range anywhere, depending upon the city, in between 65 to about 130 people there. Now that's not attractive to any company's marketing department, right? When there's game jams and, you know, just some meetup that might have a few hundred. So so what we try to share with them isn't, hey, you're going to have hundreds of thousands of people that are seeing, you know, your product or your brand. It really is about how much do you care about helping the community grow. And that's what I found is that, and another reason why we actually started to implement the real world verticals, because, you know, some of the feedback that I'm getting from these companies, and especially now that everyone's getting a little bit tighter with their budgets, because the amount of people that would spend money on a VR event is not growing at the same rate of people that are asking them for money to throw a VR event. And so it's really about what is their return on investment, right? And so with these real world verticals that we're doing now, they're saying hackathons for us are just kind of a whatever, because we don't really get anything out of it. People come build something for a weekend, and then it never goes anywhere. And most of the stuff is gaming. Now, most of the people like HTC and these others, they're looking at enterprise, right? So being able to say to them, hey, we're going to help you develop proof of concepts that show these other industries. Some of them start with, that have T's, trillions, not billions. We're going to help you develop these proof of concepts, or things that will help push you into these verticals. That gets their attention, right? That helps them say, okay, how can we help better? So just from some lessons learned and arrows I've taken, the more you can play the enterprise side, the better, unless, of course, your sponsor is just like Valve or something like that. So that's one thing I would say, is showing them, again, you're helping the community grow, and then also we're helping you get your service, your hardware, something like that, more exposed in a new vertical.
Limit on the number of participants. How do you manage that? First come, first serve? Do you qualify them?
For the people who attend the hackathon.
Yeah, you said no more than 200 people.
Right. So we learned from the Brussels event, which was great. Open up different ticket types. So have a ticket type for software developers, engineers. Have a ticket type for artists. Have a ticket type for press, and that kind of thing. The ticket types was a really great idea. Plus, it gives event organizers and others good metrics, so you know exactly who's in the audience.
Yeah, but you're stopping a developer from taking an artist ticket, right?
Well, I mean, you make them all the same price, and so usually people will be pretty fair about that.
I just mean if one ran out, and if one type ran out and somebody really wanted to go.
Well, haven't had that happen yet.
Yeah. Not that you know of, at least.
So that becomes cross that bridge when you get there. Now, with that said, in Cameroon though, they're actually having a whole screening process where if you want to buy a ticket, you have to submit like a portfolio of online work that you've done just to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
In Cameroon. So it really is up to...
That's not a good sell for growing the community.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah. So it really is kind of up to the locals being able to best identify, their community. A lot of the people who come to us and say, hey, help us do a VR hackathon, it's mainly someone who throws a VR or AR meetup, right, in the area. And they, kind of already know and have that network.
Yeah, so honestly, we were looking for a large audience. We were tapping into MIT and Harvard and the Media Lab, as well as our local developer groups, to try to get a really large audience. So do you have any suggestions for managing that?
Just people's interests, expectations, or at the event?
I was thinking more at the event.
Managing it, I think, and for the people that, in the audience that have been to a hackathon, I mean, the thing that makes it so great is since it is a job site, so to speak, right? People expect it to be a little rugged, a little rough around the edges, and things to maybe more organic, right? So I think there's a lot more forgiveness in hackathons, is the way that things run, than with an event and whatnot. And usually when I am doing a hackathon with someone who's never been to one before, mine or others, they kind of almost overcomplicate it, and it's like, look, smart people, all they need is power, Wi-Fi, a little bit of direction, keep them hydrated, keep them fed, and get out of their way. Right, so one could go bigger. I mean, yeah, you could have 1,000 people that come, but again, I just think that part of what I value out of the hackathons that we've done at under 200 is again, it gives everyone a chance to really kind of get to. Maybe I didn't talk with everybody, but I talked with most people, right? And keeps it a little bit more personable. and then it's just outreach. It's just outreach, and then having your different tickets and letting people know, hey, there's scarcity, right? If you want to go to this, you better sign up now. And then once you have those numbers, it's easier to know what you have to work with.
Hey, Damon, we started a little bit late, and I don't want to run out of time. You have a couple of tabs that you wanted to run through with us.
Oh well, it was just more of those were just introductory. I mean, it was more of just, like I said, sharing with if anyone had any questions as far as like, hey, who's this guy, and what does he do with virtual reality, that kind of thing, and then just also it was just talking a little bit about the organizations that are involved with helping the hackathon community globally. So it wasn't anything beyond that. I'll be more than happy to just share those in the chat window here, or if there's an email that you want to send it out and share it with people, they can kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, I would definitely like to do that. I'd like to sum up. I think you brought up some important points that relate a couple of things. Workflow that we've got to get done, which is what the sponsors and what the participants are looking to get out of this. And I think that brings together a theme that I think plays with both, and it's really where we have to start, because we don't know what we're going to give to sponsors if we haven't thought through the theme and what they're going to get from it. You talked about access to enterprise. Is important. How we work that into the theme suddenly becomes important, and everything flows from there to what we do from a PR standpoint and from a sponsor development standpoint. So I think this has been tremendously valuable, and there's a lot there in terms of what we have to logistically think about. I just have one other question, and then we'll make sure we've covered everything. 200 or 400 people that come to the event, how do they reach beyond? How could we help them reach beyond our 200 or 400 people that come to the event?
So forgive me, I don't know if I understand the question fully. So you're saying that the people who come to the event, how do you help them get the word out beyond just the small amount when it comes to the sponsors or the attendees projects, or?
Message reach beyond the 400 people that are directly affected because they've come to the hackathon. Obviously the sponsors want possible, and if there were a secondary effect, might be valuable.
To add to that, have you ever had any experience live streaming the presentations?
That's a great idea. It always comes into the venue's bandwidth, and since a lot of this, almost all of it, really is done on volunteers, right? We're not an official organization. None of us are looking to become event planners. This really is about community coming together. So if someone shows up that's got a camera, knows how to do Twitch, and wants to live stream it, hey, problem solved, right? It really is just a matter of seeing what the volunteers will commit to, and then also what's available, in the budget as well. Because a lot of the sponsorship that we get is in-kind contributions, or if it is money, it's someone that's giving us money to pay for a venue that is like $10,000 for the weekend, right? And then whatever extra little money we have left over is, we try to put toward, better cash prizes, or in some cases, if we know enough people are coming in from out of town, we'll Airbnb like a really big house, so people can crash there and have access to showers and that kind of thing. But to your question about the sponsors, one way that we've done something to kind of help the sponsors feel better is, in addition to the Sunday expo that's kind of for the teams and people that's kind of open to the public, the Friday night is also open to the public. And so what we didn't do it at the first one as much, but we've definitely done it at every one since then, and it's been great results, is we make the Friday night a mega mixer. So it's like, come and have your VR and AR, and this is for enthusiasts or anything. And we will have several hundred people who will come through the course of the evening there. And so the sponsors feel great because they get to do their dog and pony show, they get to set up the table, take the pictures of, oh, look how packed our booth was, social media blast, and all that kind of stuff. And then we have, usually the sponsors then will give a little presentation on the Friday night, and then we don't kick off the actual hackathon until about 8 or 8:30. And so that's been something to where we've found that the sponsors say, okay, look, between between the little mixer on Friday night and then people working with our stuff on Saturday and Sunday, and and if they work on our stuff, we've never had a sponsor that has said, oh, we got no value out of that yet, knock on wood. So that's yeah. Always trying to look for more things though that make them feel better about their ROI though.
Cool, excellent, wonderful. Well, I really appreciate your taking the time.
I have one sort of concluding question, if I could.
Sure.
Just based on your experience, what would you think it takes to make this like the most awesome hackathon ever?
I think the thing is and this really comes from the organizers. Don't stress about it, right? It's like when you go to think of it. It's like a LAN party for a purpose. If your host is smiling and having a good time, that really goes out to everybody, right? And so I think what makes the hackathon the best is really the people who come, and that's why it's so infectious, right? To do them is because when people are leaving on that Sunday, they usually have new friends that they've made. They've usually learned something new. They've done something cool, regardless if they won or they didn't. And they're walking away, kind of reinvigorated and have a passion again, for something. So I think what can make your event the best is just realize that if you have 5 people show up or 5 million, it's a quality over quantity game. And it really is about just remembering, hey, we're here to have fun, be productive, and do cool stuff.
Awesome.
Now, cool tech helps. I'm not going to lie about that. If you throw in a HoloLens or something like that people can come and check out, or a Meta space glass or something, definitely. But I really think it's attitude more than anything else.
Sweet. Okay.
And then just in closing, as you guys decide to move forward with this, like I said, I'll be more than happy to share with you, the schedule of events and the volunteer timesheets and everything that we have. We have a whole kind of package kit. It's kind of a running a hackathon in a box kind of deal where you see exactly what you need and what to fill in and things like that. So you're not just kind of thrown out to the wolves to figure it out yourself. There's a lot of documents, everything from the sponsorship prospectus that kind of outlines all of this information to the people who would be your venue hosts, what's expected of them. So definitely happy to share with you guys these documents that just a lot of our organization easier.
The one issue that I could see from the judging logistics you described is that some of the participants might write for the Oculus or the Vive, but they wouldn't have their own. And so that could get a little tricky when the judges are going from table to table.
Well, in
how to
case,
those resources and how to judge.
Okay, you froze there for a moment. But I think from what you were saying, most of the people who come and develop stuff already have the gear.
Right, but we're going after MIT and Harvard students, so I don't think they're going to necessarily have their own high-end equipment. They may have access to it at the lab, but they may not bring their own. Now, Jeff's group and the professional developers who meet regularly, yes, they will, who, you know, certainly offer. And I have seen where folks on the Hack Nights, the hackathon days with Jeff's group are sharing equipment and have developed a hack, worked it out for Oculus, and then moved it over and made sure it also worked on the Vive, things like that.
Yeah, we have set up, I mean, you know, one, and that's kind of neat, is that, you know, usually someone that you team up with will have the gear. Now, in case they don't,
yes, if we're bringing in students, that's what I'm thinking of.
Okay. Well,
maybe
you know, we set up stations. So, you know, like at this one here in San Francisco, I had a whole station set up with the Vive, where people could test out whatever they were building with the Vive, and come up and do it. So that is a possibility that you have, you know, like 2 stations for an Oculus, because, you know, the Vive requires more room and that type of thing. So we have done that before.
And the judging was okay? I was just thinking.
Yeah, because they just made sure that whatever they were showing was already sitting on that machine, and then the judges would just look at their demos running off of that machine. So whatever they built it on, or whatever, you know, once they built it, and then it sat somewhere, then that's their station that they ran it from.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
So we'd love to see the hackathon in a box, and also that you might possibly come out budget the budget of your time being available first of all, and the budget that we can put together to cover your expenses and participate as a judge and mentor.
Well, you know, I'm one of those to where, you know, I mean, I believe in the cause. I mean, if you know. The trip and, you know, a very inexpensive Airbnb or crashing on someone's couch is good enough for me. I don't really request an honorarium for something like this. So yeah, I guess simply put, I'm a cheap date.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to get you out here. So let's put that as a stake in the sand right now and see if we can't make that happen.
And then as I shared with you, you know, by the time that you guys kind of formulate a little bit more and things like that, we should have 1 or 2 key sponsors that are sponsoring at the community level that you'll be able to go out and say, here are these companies that already are sponsors of the event, and as I shared with you, it's going to be more hardware than cash, but at least you'll be able to say that you have those anchor sponsors on board.
That'd be really valuable. That would be really, really valuable. So I'm going to just go around and talk to a few people here. You're welcome to stay on or drop off.
If anybody has any questions, they're welcome just to come up and ask. I'll stay on for about 15 more minutes. So.
Any more questions, folks?
If they just want to come and say hi.
So, well, let's. I just want to cover a couple of things. Jonathan, you've got the theme. what's marinated and come and been brought to the front of your mind after today's session?
Well, so I mean, part of it came up in the conversation just now, which is, you know, do you divide it by sort of technology platform, or do you divide it by vertical, or you do a little bit of both? And you know, we had and so we have a lot of options there, and but that could be more than what are the prize categories, you know. So it's a little bit hard how you separate what is the theme of the event versus the prize categories, but you kind of want it all to work together. And so that was just one thing that was going. And then the other thing that was kind of fun was that if this is going to be on Columbus weekend and it is Boston, and there's this Boston, Columbus, and then we could sort of go on the theme of discovery and exploration, and kind of play with that, and just keep it a little bit generic, and let you know, or sort of, you know, the new world or something. We could just kind of use that as a phrase for a theme, but let the participants kind of take it where they want it to go.
Okay. Fascinating. Now, Chief, right?
Arpit.
Yeah, Arpit, I'm sorry. You've expressed an interest in formulating some of the content around the hackathon, either seminars or other types of events. What's come to mind after listening to this?
I think that idea, after hearing Damon talk about it, we definitely have to do it. Like, whether it's an hour, 2 hour, we kind of have to figure it out how many speakers we can line them up. But I think that's a great start to a hackathon. I think the ones that I've attended, so I was at South by Southwest last week at their music hackathon. They spent an hour going over different music stuff, and that was really inspiring. So I think I'll take that as an action item to figure out what's the ideal length. But I think Friday evening, at least to me, sounds like we got to spend some time doing a seminar or mini conference that actually we can invite general public. Like, if you have no interest in a hackathon, come to that seminar or a mini conference and just learn what's happening. I think that would be good to hold for sponsors. Yeah, so I'll take that as an action item to kind of refine that a little bit more.
Okay, cool. Then.
We open up the judging day to the general public. I guess for YC, they have the demo day, and then open the doors to people outside of the community, say, hey, you can come and help with.
Come around, Luna.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Damon talked about having video set up, right? So the logistics of doing that, having video, if the judges are going to each team.
Video to broadcast?
Yeah, to broadcast what the judges are seeing when they visit each team. Right,
so broadcast it to the broader public, whoever interested.
Well, broadcast it within the venue, first of all.
No, I'm more...
Closed circuit.
Yeah, I'm commenting more about opening up the venue to those who are not participants of the hackathon.
Right, and if the judges are going from table to table, and there's a lot of people who aren't participants tagging along, they could get in the way.
You're talking about.
So that's why we have to have a nice little bouncer that tells people to move.
Let the teams present. So.
Yeah, or
what the video feed helps to do is to open it up to people who are hacking and other people who might want to come in to see what's been created.
Mm-hmm. But totally like the
so
idea.
I think he covered it. He covered that way of doing it.
Right. Before we did it, the thing where we failed miserably was we just had the judges go to each station, and so we're telling other people, hey, don't crowd around them, go away and sit at your station. And then you had a bunch of people who were like, well, what did everybody else work on? right? You know, I mean, and they're not even getting the same presentations that you get at other hackathons where it's somebody with their pitch deck, right? So, so what we decided to do on this last one is we just asked all the teams. We said, hey, do you guys mind putting together a little, 2 to 3 minute video? Could be just a screen grab. It doesn't have to be anything, professional, but just something that we can play on the projector while you're giving your presentations. So when we say, and next up is team blah, 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 that at least there's a video, and if there's a microphone, that the person, as they're explaining to the judges, then everyone else can be watching the video on the projector, even though the judges are looking at them, putting on the Oculus, and doing that. So I highly recommend that you guys do that as well. Because
or just stick a 360 camera in the booth and stream it to everybody.
Well, that would be cool, right? Hey, that's eating one's own dog food. But then the great thing also about that approach that we didn't think about until after the fact is that this also gave us media to put online of what kind of projects were done there.
Yeah.
So it doubled image. So yeah.
Luna's idea, I think I would sum it up, and I'm trying not to put any constraints on anything at this stage. I mean, we can always put constraints on things as we get closer and say, we have resource limitations, time limitations, technical limitations. Those things can all, it's an opportunity to enhance the value for sponsors, as long as the judges have a fast lane at doing their work. So as long as we're mindful in terms of how we put that together, having the public around, and you solved that problem at the hackathon at Microsoft in San Francisco last week, by having the displays up above, where even if people weren't in the front row, they could look up at the display and see in a binocular format.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that I had, Damon, for a larger group was to bracket it and to have like 2 teams of judges or 3 teams of judges that visit some of each of them visits some, and they pre-qualify, and then there's a second round to winning. And so the best, judged by 2 teams, or break them up into 3 teams of judges, and each presentation gets a visit from 2 of the judge teams. Or
I mean, if you have a high amount of,
I don't know. I just thought that it would be able to kind of entries, and we don't know about that yet. And I also thought we might find ways to lower the technical barrier and to invite presentations and contributions from people who may not be able to implement, but want to participate and want to do something creative with the time. So
well, I mean,
we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something that I think it's fun, right? I mean, there could be a whole category that's just what's the coolest business case, no code needed, or something like that, right? I mean, again, I think that's just better. Again, it's identifying and understanding where is your community right now. If your community is mainly not developers, having a whole bunch of development tracks is probably not the best idea.
So
when you talk about limiting, can you limit it by the number of teams rather than the number of people?
Usually not. I mean, unless beforehand you just say, hey, we're going to restrict this to a certain amount of teams, because we've seen teams of 1 or teams of 13, and so I think unless you're going to again have people submit beforehand, because there are hackathons where you do that. You have to have a team. You have to submit what you're going to work on, what you're bringing to the table already, and that's fine. But I think what happens there is you don't get that you don't get that serendipity. You don't get that just brainstorming of where people do show up and they said, you know, I had an idea for something I wanted to do, but I started, you know, I had a beer and started chatting with that guy over there, and we came up with a really cool idea, right? Now, I will say that we had close to 20 teams in San Francisco. Anything more than that, and yes, you would definitely need 2 sets of judges to do that. But the moment that you have 2 sets of judges judging 2 sets of people independently, then you've just lost your one presenter to the whole room.
Right. So the other thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up, because I think it's important to our particular situation, is bridging to student bodies. And we have a pretty good idea of the community. Jeff and Jono, and we've got a lot of people who are showing up regularly and participating in meetups and are an active group. But I think our meetup groups are not well connected to student groups, and how we can bridge that and serve them as well as the devil we know is, I think, a fair question. So I'm not sure if you have a good answer for it, but maybe you could think about it and take that and see what you think might work to serve them who are not yet professional and may have zero experience with Unity. Or limited, very, very few hours in front of the Unity editor.
Well, this probably sounds like a really stupid idea, but in that maybe one of the categories is the best hack with the campus or something. And where I'm getting that from is so the city of Stamford, Connecticut, does a Smart Cities Hackathon, where they provide a data set of the city, so a 3D model of the city. And then people, one of the tracks that they had was the team that builds the coolest VR experience that uses the 3D model of the city to improve the city somehow. So, just kind of taking a little bit of that and then listening to what you're saying, maybe a hack is for students who it's come and how would you use a model of the campus or MIT or whatever, but how would you build a cool VR, AR app that improves the school, right? Or makes the school fun, or new student orientation using geolocated based AR or something like that. Again, keep it fun, maybe something like that, because then they don't need to have the technical chops. They just know, hey, I'm a student, I know it would be cool, if we had that in VR, AR, and maybe that's an idea.
So, okay, wonderful. Just one last thing for everyone. Jonathan, I'd like to, in the next couple of weeks, in the next 2 weeks, formulate the theme a little bit and get Miles and Ian involved in terms of the website that we're working on, and not have a firm idea, but have something that's tangible, and see if we could get in front of Jason Ponton, who heads the MIT Technology Review, to give us to give it a review. One, because he's a fantastic storyteller and can help us with the story as it applies to our participants and also our sponsors. He can give us some good ideas about what to ask with the sponsors. So if you'd start to think about how we could pull that together and what resources from us you'd need to get started on that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could just spend a Saturday afternoon or something just in a room. I mean, I think it's more, I can't do anything in a vacuum. I think what would be best would be to do it collaboratively.
Okay. Okay. Let me take that as an action to find a time when we could get together and do that, and that would work out really, really well. Okay, let's call it a wrap. Damon, I want to thank you. You're fantastic, and thank you for being so generous with your time. And look forward to seeing you in California in April when I'm out there.
Exactly. Well,
You're
thank
welcome.
you, everyone, and feel free to share, my contact information with anyone that has questions about this or just other stuff. Happy to help, however.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
All right, I'm hanging up.
We're all hanging up.